Welcome to the Supported Living Property Podcast with your host, me, Lisa Brown, the place to learn about supported living property investing. Hi, Julie. It's great to have you here today. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, sweetheart. How are you? You all right?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. For people who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself and tell people a bit about you?
Yeah, I'm Julie Fadden. I run my own company, Be Authentic Limited, and that's to help organisations become the best that they can be, whether it's getting the most out of their employees, it's about policy reviews, structural reviews, service reviews, anything predominantly around the housing, but also about leadership and motivational management of employees and customer engagement. So there's a whole range of stuff that I do. But I've been in public service about 42 years. And I've kind of been in local government, I've been in housing associations, and I've virtually done every job from being on the counter at 17 to being a chief executive of a housing association. So I've covered the full spectrum, really, of what needs to happen in order to get the proper and decent service provision to the customer, because they deserve it, you know, and we all use services and we all want to get the best out of those services. And I'm passionate about making sure that people get the social justice they're entitled to. I'm passionate about people getting the best out of their lives that they can. And my mantra is that we're all on this earth to leave it better than when we found it. That means every life we touch, every person we meet should be better for having had our involvement. And if we're not doing that, then there's something wrong. And if your team isn't doing that, then there's something wrong. And that's where I can step in and help organisations.
Amazing. So much experience to draw upon. But we're here to talk about something specific, aren't we? Specific project that you're involved in. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that and talk about that for us?
Yeah, I've got the sniffles today, so excuse me. Yeah, in April 20, when the first lockdown started, I just had an idea, because my city has had the worst cuts of any local authority in the country over the years. And we were then faced with the everyone in policy that the government have brought in that said everybody that's currently street homeless need to be put up in a hotel. And to be frank, my city didn't have the money to pay for that, you know, and the government was a bit loath in coming forward with the money they needed. So we were faced with a real dilemma of having this unbudgeted huge cost. And at the same time, I was aware that as a chief executive of a housing association, while all the offices were shut of all housing associations, we had all these properties being stockpiled that weren't being let. And I just made the connection that if we just work with the city to match our homeless people to the properties, then we will wipe out the need for the money that will be spent as dead money on hotels. And that's what we did. So first of all, I engaged with my peers who were already chief executives of housing associations across Merseyside. And I spoke to them about, you know, the potential for us to do this project. And they supported me as long as I was leading it, which was fine, because I was happy to do that in my own time. I then got in touch with a couple of people who were really good organisationally in housing, two directors from two different organisations. They're willing to give of their own time to manage the property end, so the property matching end. And then we engaged with Whitechapel Crisis and the YMCA in Liverpool, because they're the predominant homeless charities in Liverpool. And we engaged with them, and they had all their clients. So we basically said to the city, look, let's work with you, let's help you lead this. And then I took the lead as the lead officer on behalf of the registered providers, the social landlords. I took the lead on behalf of them to represent their interests and make sure the properties were allocated properly. So essentially, I then said to the homeless charities and the people leading those organisations, we need you to give us your lists, bring us your people. You know who is homeless, you know who are in hotels and bed and breakfasts and hostels. Give us all your people. And when you give us the people, we need to know the family makeup. We need to know whether they're a single person or a family of five or whatever it might be, and the ages of the children, because we need to make sure that we adequately house people. But we also need to know what areas they want to live in, because it's absolutely pointless. If I'm representing the social landlords, it's absolutely pointless just putting a homeless person into any property without them having any choice, because they won't stay. And if they don't stay, then that property then becomes void again, and the person ends up back on the street. And all we're doing is churning these people and properties. And every time we change a property, it would cost us around £3,000 to get it ready to be let for the next person. So there seemed no sense in not properly matching people. And there seemed no sense to me or the other social landlords. If we didn't give these people choice, then this thing wouldn't survive. And all we'd be doing is wasting a load of money. And we weren't there to be wasting public money. It was about saving public money. So we also decided that we couldn't just put these people in a box. We couldn't just say, right, okay, you know, you can have 31 Acacia Avenue. It's a 3-bed house and it's got no furniture. So it's tough. So we had to agree to furnish the properties. And one of the barriers we had was that the way the city officers had done that in the past is that they said, well, okay, we'll give them furniture, but we won't give them towels and all the other stuff. And I said, well, how can you put a homeless person in a house and they just haven't got bedding and towels? I mean, you know, honestly, you know, what are they going to do? Roll around on the floor to get dry? So they're some of the kind of practical things that I was kind of questioning. And I was like, I suppose like the Emperor's New Clothes, I was like the little lad in the corner to go, well, why are we doing that then? Why are we doing it like that? Why would we treat these people any differently than the way I'd treat my own family? You know, so if I was setting my kids up in a house, well, I would expect them to have everything they needed to live their life independently. Otherwise, what's the point? So, so we started from that premise. And so the baselines for me were they had to have choice, that we would give them up to 3 offers because, you know, maybe the first offer for whatever reason wouldn't be the right one, wouldn't be close to the school or whatever it might be. So, that, you know, we would give them choice of area, you know, subject to the being social housing in those areas. I mean, we did have some, you know, there's a really nice part of Liverpool called Calderstones, and we did have some people say, well, I want Calderstones. Well, we all want Calderstones, but, you know, we just can't afford it. So if there's no social housing there, well, in that sense, you're going to have to pick somewhere where there is, because, you know, we can't just wave a magic wand. So what we then did was we said, okay, we've got all the homeless charities pulling together all the people in a big spreadsheet. And we had these 2 officers, these 2 wonderful people, Julie and Kathy, who then pulled together all the properties in a big property spreadsheet. And then we started doing the matching, and Julie and Kathy would be doing the matching every single night of the year. And we did this for 18 months. And every night without fail, at 9 o'clock, these 2 women would go on and they'd have a Zoom call like this and they'd do the matching. And then they would liaise with the various social landlord contacts to say, these are the properties, these are the matches we've made. The people will be viewing, so your staff will arrange a viewing for these people to go and view. Each of these homeless people would have a support worker anyway, so that support worker would go out and do the accompanied viewing with them. And we would then find out, you know, when they could move in, and generally it was pretty straight away. And then Julie would be the one that would order the furniture. And we had to raise £1 million for furniture. That, you know, we had to raise the funds to pay for the furniture because there just wasn't the money there. So we bid to the government, we bid to, you know, the social landlords came up with, you know, £250,000 towards it, you know. So, you know, everybody kind of just put the hand in the pocket to see what we could do in order to make this fly. So getting the furniture was key. And then we partnered up with the Furniture Resource Centre in Liverpool, which is a fantastic organisation. And we partnered up with them, and they, you know, installed, put together the flat pack furniture, there's flat pack furniture. And so Julie liaised with them that, you know, Mrs. Jones is moving in on the 1st of March, and they were there on the 1st of March to move in with everything. And they got the blinds, they got the curtains, they got the flooring, they got the white goods. They got all the furniture they needed, the bed and the towels, the cutlery, everything they needed. And, you know, they just literally needed to move in with their clothes and their family and a bag of food, and it's home. So that was the intention, and that's what was achieved. And in 18 months, we had over 1,000 properties, and we took over 2,000 adults and children that were previously homeless off the streets for good in permanent furnished tenancies. And we gifted the furniture because what we didn't want to do was we didn't want people to then be in furniture poverty because they couldn't get a job because the rent would be too high, paying for the proportion of furniture service charge. So he gifted the furniture so that that wouldn't be a barrier to them finding work. And, you know, people have found employment. We partnered up, you know, to get them some employment training. So people have had that opportunity to actually just rebuild their lives and, you know, work with the families, work with the agencies that were there. We provided ongoing support for at least 6 months if they needed it. So the homeless agency said, well, we'll provide the support, you provide the properties, we'll provide the support. And that makes sure that people are helped. And it wasn't just the people who were in the homeless hostels that we helped. We helped domestic violence sufferers. We helped people coming out of the armed forces that you know, for whatever reason. We helped people coming out of prison. We helped you know, refugees. We helped people coming out of long-term local authority care. So you know, care leavers, young people that were coming out of care. And some of those young people had children themselves. And, you know, you know, when they get to 16, they're just given the marching orders, really. And sometimes we lose sight of that. And it's really important that we've got that safety net. And what the project provided was that safety net across everybody. So everybody that was hit with that crisis in that period were supported, and they were lifted out of that situation into a permanent furnished tenancy. And it's changed lives.
And I mean, I was going to ask about the support side of things, because obviously you can dump somebody into a property, can't you? But if they've got quite complex needs, then that's not necessarily going to work. They're not going to be able to maintain that tenancy. But you found that by giving that support, that's enabled that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's the support, but the key, really, the key thing for me was giving people choice. All human beings want choice, don't they? So that they want to know what, you know, they want choice about where they want to live, what they want to do with their lives. And just because you haven't got a roof over your head, it doesn't change the fact that you need choice. And so giving them that meant that we could sustain people in those tenancies. And out of those over 2,000 people that we housed, only 18 people reverted back to street homelessness.
Wow, so, that's an amazing figure, isn't it?
That's because you do it right. You see, you know, my old dad, with a picture of him behind, you know, used to say there's only one way to do it, and that's the right way. So there's no point wasting time and money faffing around doing things the wrong way. You do it right first time, and you box it off, and you get it sorted, and you get people into the position they need to be in to live their lives fruitfully. And that's what we did. And by keeping that line, by being passionate about not compromising on choice and giving people that advocacy and that ongoing support, only 18 people reverted back to the streets. And that was largely because they couldn't settle. They, you know, people get used to a way of life, and, you know, they needed ongoing complex support needs. And, you know, sometimes that just happens. But 18 out of over 2,000 isn't a bad figure.
No, it's phenomenal. And what's the long-term impact of that been? Has that changed the way things are done within the local authority? Has it made things work in a different way going forward, having seen the benefit and the way this has worked?
Well, I think the way we were working was difficult for the local authority because they have a legal responsibility to conduct lettings in a fair and equitable way. And obviously, during this period, we had to suspend the choice-based letting system. And that was a need because we had to help these homeless people. So for this 18-month period, we suspended use of the choice-based letting system. And that was needed in a number of ways. But the main reason was because homeless people generally don't get first pick of the properties on that kind of system. So, you know, the choice element just isn't there. And it's just you get what you give, and you get what no one else wants to live in. And that's why that wouldn't be sustainable. So in order for it to be sustained, we had to suspend use of that. But long term, the legality of that is a problem because, you know, local authorities have to be fair and equitable in the way they allocate homes or encourage the allocation of homes. So in the longer term, that couldn't be sustained as a way forward. But there needs to be, and this still hasn't been done, but there needs to be an ongoing commitment to a quota of all tenancies that become available going to homeless people. And so potentially that could be 10-20% of all social lets over a period, over a year, need to be allocated to help house homeless people. And anecdotally, I've been speaking to some of the staff since obviously the project closed down last year. I've been speaking to some of the staff involved in it, and it started to revert back, and the numbers are climbing in temporary accommodation again, and the costs are going out of the city into temporary accommodation again. So, the reality is we proved how to do it. We proved it could be done. I think the challenge when people are taken out of that leadership role is, I'm not there anymore, and, one of the other people who helped me isn't there anymore. So the reality is that when key people are taken out of that mix, the leadership of it might stall. And so it's really important that if you've got a project, it needs to be led properly. There needs to be clarity at the outset. You need to be honest with each other about what's required. And you need to be quite bullish. And sometimes I have to be quite bullish and said, I need this information. We're not having people languishing and rotting away in temporary accommodation, families living in one room, when we've got the capacity here to do something about it and the capability. So it was very much pushing people for the information we needed. And that was a different way of working, I think, for some of the local authority officers. But in terms of the whole project, it worked well because, not being funny, it had to be led properly, and people had to be brought together for a common purpose. And that common purpose was changing those lives. And that's what we did.
And I think the other key thing for me is about the furnishings and the complete package of furnishings, and that will have been a really significant issue, I would have thought. I would have thought that would have been made a massive difference for people moving into those properties and setting up those tenancies right and getting people set up right from the beginning. Because otherwise, you move someone into a shell, they're set up to fail, aren't they? Like you said, they don't, and it costs money, and a lot of money, to set up a house properly. Has there been any impact or anything from that? Have you seen anywhere people are beginning to realise that actually is something we need to be looking at better as well?
Well, the industry does tend to look at those kinds of issues. I mean, it is patchy because some people will, embrace things like furnished accommodation. Other people go, oh, it's too scary. What do you do when they move out? Well, you change the mattress, you clean it up a bit, and you move the next person in. I mean, it's not difficult stuff. Private sector do it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So, private sector landlords listening will be like, yeah, this is what we do.
It's bread and butter. It's not difficult stuff, is it?
No.
It's like if you're letting your own home. That's what you do, isn't it? So I think sometimes getting people to see how you do something differently, is a challenge. But I think the furnishings, we did an independent study. So the Liverpool City region did an independent research study into the project to see what lessons were learned and what savings will have been made. And the reality is, it's not just the money that we saved in respect of the cost of the temporary accommodation. The hotel costs were the least of it, really, because it's the knock-on costs on mental health, on the NHS, on the criminal justice system, when people then get churned again because they can't settle, so they end up committing crimes. There's a whole host of other knock-on costs that are incurred when somebody is on the street, that when you house them in a permanent furnished home, and it costs around £1,500 to furnish each home. So you move people into a furnished home, it's in an area they want to live in, it's in a community they feel safe in, they've got ongoing support for 6 months. What's not to love? And, the proof of the pudding for me is in only 18 people reverting back to the street. And, in the majority of other cases and other homeless, examples around the country, if they examine the attrition rate of people reverting back to their former way of life. Well, look at the process, look at what you're doing, and look at what we did, and talk to me. You know, if you want me to come and give you some help, advice where you are, I'm quite happy to go and do that, because sometimes it's just about asking the why. Well, why are you doing it like that? Why don't you do this? Have you not tried this? Have you not tried that? And sometimes people are fixed in their entrenched view. And there's a real opportunity here to do it differently, real opportunity to save even more lives. And why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah. Oh, it's really brilliant. Thank you, Julie, for sharing about it. My dog's obviously decided to join in, and so he's barking in the background. But thank you. It was really great. We'll put your contact details in the show notes so people can find you. And yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time. Take care. Thank you.
No problem. You take care too.
Right.